Well, thanks, Jonathan. I'm Lori Gillen. I'm the director of the HUBZone program at SBA. So, yeah, happy. One fan in the room. Mentor Protege holds a place near and dear in my heart. Right before I started as the director of the HUBZone program, I had the fortunate honor of running what was the all small Mentor Protege program at SBA. So, and for those who don't know, we have over 200 firms that have participated in the Mentor Protege program through SBA and have won awards through joint ventures they've formed through that. So we always encourage that as a HUBZone opportunity. So, let's get started. First, let me thank the council for inviting SBA every year to participate in your annual event. We appreciate the opportunity to share updates and news and to collaborate. Always come out of here with a long list of great ideas that we ought to be considering, and we really do appreciate that collaboration. Especially want to thank the chairwoman, Shirley Bailey, and your great CEO, Michelle Burnett. She and I don't... Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. She and I, we don't always see eye to eye on maybe a few things, one or two things, but on most things, I would say we're in lockstep, and we work collaboratively to improve the program and its impact in communities. She's a great advocate for you, so just know that. I have a terrific team of folks at home, back at SBA, who are equally dedicated to the mission, and you'll see the results of their work as I go through this presentation and share with you a few updates about the HUBZone program as we look forward towards fiscal year 23 as well. And so let's start with the federal Small Business Scorecard and the 3% goal that was established for HUBZone, which is that red line up at the top, right? So I'm a glass half full kind of person. And so when I take a look at this chart, I like to start with it because I'd like to ask you to appreciate the positive trajectory and the fact that we have reached this year 2.53%. For HUBZone. It's easy to point to 3% and question why we haven't reached it, and that's fair. But I'd suggest the efforts we've all put into making this program stronger are starting to take hold and are working. And I think that's some evidence about that. So I would also just say, given the relative size of the pool of certified HUBZone firms, which every year, any given day hovers around 5,500 firms compared to the pool of SDB firms, where there are about 150 plus certified SDB firms working towards an 11% goal. I think that we're, in the HUBZone program, actually punching above our weight. So kudos to all of you and to any of the contracting officers in the room who are making that happen. So let's talk about that for a minute. And let's share some good news. Why am I optimistic about the program? Let's talk about some highlights of fiscal year 21 that demonstrates for all of us that there's a lot to be proud of. Most HUBZone dollars ever at $14.3 billion. Come on, folks. Woo! Into HUBZone communities. Third highest percentage in the history of the program, fourth straight year of improvement, a 5.16% increase in dollars to HUBZone communities, so about $700 million more into HUBZone communities, 3.6% increase in goal attainment, and $88 million increase, a 4.3% increase in HUBZone set-asides over last year. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's a lot to pack into this slide, but I want to share it with you. I shared it with the OSDBUs from all the federal agencies at a meeting we had in SBA last week. So I'm not going to go over all of it, but I do want to highlight a few things and demonstrate how hard federal agencies have been working to achieve HUBZone goals this year. So let's start at the top. As demonstrated here, more than half of all federal agencies have now met or exceeded the goal. And this is an increase of 1 over last year, go EPA, and not one agency fell off the list. That's the first piece of good news. It means that the list of those who have not achieved the goal is getting shorter and shorter, and so those agencies are even more motivated to reach 3%, right? Glass half full. Let's take a look at scorecard goal attainment by agency. The agencies are listed here in order of the highest percentage HUBZone achievement. SBA is the big champ this year at the top. So I'm personally happy that the hometown team, yay, gets to claim we're the champions this year. So go SBA. But I also, as I mentioned, I wanted to call your attention to the gold star I gave out this year to EPA, who they were the only agency to move into the big leagues this year, and had a 144% increase in HUBZone. So they were the biggest achiever. Anybody from EPA?
She'll be here tomorrow.
Great. Oh, she knows. I've been singing her praises all year. Yeah. So in addition to SBA and EPA, 2 other agencies, in my opinion, deserve recognition for big increases in goal attainment. Even though they didn't reach the 3%, let's give energy at 82% increase and education with a 51% increase deserve an A for effort. So kudos to them. Altogether, 14 agencies improved their percentage goal attainment over last year, and those are all indicated in green. I don't want to focus on those who slipped backward this year, only to note that if these agencies had just held their own and kept up the same percentage as last year, we would have reached 2.63% this year instead of 2.5% and pumped another $500 million into underserved communities. And in case you, like me, are wondering, if DOD alone had reached 3% in fiscal year 21 and everyone else had performed exactly as they did, we would have exceeded 3%. No pressure on DOD, but look forward to working with them to figure out how we can get them to 3%, because it really does make a difference. I did have a chance, as I mentioned, to chat with the OSDBUs and called out a few other agencies that deserve some honorable mention. So let me just share those with you with respect to total dollars awarded to HUBZone firms. These folks continue to be our MVPs: DOD, DHS, Veterans, State Department, and HHS. Together, these 5 agencies drove more than $10 billion to HUBZone firms, representing 73% of the total. So a special shout out to State Department for clearly punching above their weight for HUBZone. 17 agencies increased their dollars awarded to HUBZone firms, but I want to acknowledge the 5 with the greatest percentage increase in dollars. And after SBA and EPA came energy, labor, and interior. Together, these 5 agencies increased their HUBZone spending by $700 million, which really helped to compensate for the loss in HUBZone dollars we witnessed from Commerce, DOD, and USDA. I also want you to stop and appreciate that there's not one agency on this chart that doesn't have something to be proud about with respect to their HUBZone performance in 2021. Seriously, even the 10 agencies that did not meet the 3% goal for HUBZone improved in at least one area, and 60% of them improved in more than one area. So to me, that's momentum and evidence that we are moving in the right direction. Now, what's the disappointing news? This slide sort of speaks for itself. Use of, number 1, we have not reached the 3% government-wide goal. And number 2, use of HUBZone-only contracting vehicles is down. What does that mean? Let's place this into some context. Use of, this is a chart, just, walk through this with me. Use of HUBZone-only contracting vehicles, sole source, set aside, and PEP combined, the price evaluation preference combined, is down. represents only roughly 19% of awards to HUBZone firms. That's down from a high of 30% in 2010 and the 11th straight year of decline. Set-aside dollars, just set aside, are up. We're up over last year. Good news. But still only $2 billion, or 15.8% of HUBZone awards, and $1 billion less than in 2010. And sole source at 62 million, represents a drop of 8.7 over last year, the fifth lowest in the history of the program, and the third straight year of decline. Why is this a concern? The majority of HUBZone firms are winning contracts based on another status, which some of you benefit from, and I may see yourself represented in one of these other categories. This is a picture of the DSBS database just very quickly at one point this month, and who claimed these other certifications plus HUBZone. And as you all know, it hurts our ability to attract more firms if there aren't more HUBZone set-asides, especially those without a dual certification. And it also has been leading to some folks calling for, let's prohibit double counting. I personally don't think that double counting is the issue, and think that agencies should give credit where it's due. So we'll talk about that in a second. The second biggest factor leading to HUBZone scorecard achievement is the use of HUBZone-only contracting vehicles. I don't know if you know this, we did a study back in 2018 to look at the factors, what makes an agency perform better and do better in reaching their 3% goal. And one of the single biggest issue was gaining proficiency in the use of HUBZone set-aside vehicles. Every 1% they did in HUBZone set-aside vehicles raised their whole HUBZone goal up by 8.8%. So agencies, when we talk to agencies, we mention this, we talk about this, because we also want to point out to them that if you're gaining proficiency in set-asides, you're swimming with the tide and not against it in trying to reach your HUBZone goal. How do we compare with respect to set-asides with the other socioeconomic certification programs? As you can see from this chart, it's maybe a little hard to read, HUBZone at our roughly 19% set-aside, not doing as poorly as the WASB program at 5%, but certainly not where SDVOSB or STB using just 8A would be. Some bright spots in the set-aside story. 9 agencies stand out for increased HUBZone sole source awards by more than 15 million and represent about 65% of total sole source awards. So take a look at the names of those agencies: DOD, Veterans, DHS, Commerce, Treasury, Transportation, OPM, Education, and SBA. And 13 agencies increased HUBZone set-aside awards, and 5 of them by a total of 206 million. So how can we build on that? Well, this year, the HUBZone program, I don't know if you're aware, we produced some materials to specifically focus on the acquisition community and to really reach them with some messaging and some excitement about re-looking at the HUBZone program. And we did this spiffy fact sheet. I brought a bunch, and I have some here, and they're also down at our SBA table. So pop by if you want to see what we've said to them and how we're presenting. We did a really cool video that I'll spare you from watching, but we get it. Some people may prefer to just learn this way, so we have made this available to contracting officers as well. We've delivered dozens of presentations to thousands of contracting officers. In fact, Laura and I were on a presentation just 2 weeks ago. I think it was 1,000 contracting officers just on that one call. So we have been invited almost, I think we've probably had conversations with every agency at this point in the acquisitions community. We're trying to get beyond the small business folks. They're already singing our praises and trying to get their folks to do more awards. We're trying to get directly to the acquisitions and contracting officer folks to encourage them and sometimes shame them into doing more HUBZone set-aside contracts. We're often seated with Michelle, and we're often usually pounding the same drum beat. And one of the drum beats we pound is why care about HUBZone, right? And so we remind them that beyond the scorecard, this program makes a difference, and their decisions and their actions make a difference beyond the scorecard. So you may not be aware, in fiscal year 21, we did an impact study of the program because we wanted data. How does this program make a difference, right? And so in fiscal year 20, the study looked at fiscal year 20 data. $13 billion at that time was going in federal procurement to HUBZone firms. And the economic impact firm determined that federal infusion generated 1.9 times, so almost twice the impact in local communities at the state level, for a total of what was then $24.7 billion in aggregate economic activity. So you can see here the jobs and the indirect jobs and the employee earnings that supported. But we also know that we have a nationwide presence. We're nearly 25% of all counties and census tracts have HUBZones. We have HUBZone communities in every state, firms in every state, contracts awards in every state. It's a diverse program. We have more than half of all HUBZone firms claim dual certification. So increasing awards to HUBZone firms is also likely increasing awards to SDB, WASB, and veterans. And of course, HUBZone firms are in every NAICS code. HUBZone firms make a big difference in rural communities. And I point this out because in this study that we did in fiscal year 20, they looked at 30 mostly rural communities across the US. And the dollars in a third of those, dollars to HUBZone firms, are the main source of federal procurement. So that's a really important statistic. We may dig down on that and build on that. And then, of course, we all know that and we make this pitch every time we talk to contracting officers, HUBZone small businesses are special. Not only do they succeed in business, in government contracting, too high bars, they take it an even higher level and commit to locating their office and hiring more than a third of their workforce from some of our most underserved and deserving communities. So we continue to point that out. I think this program is the single biggest federal program that is focused on boosting the small business infrastructure and ecosystems in underserved communities. And so I try to bring that point home. And while it's easy for some folks to focus on what we haven't accomplished, and I agree, getting to 3% would mean $4 billion more to all of those, to firms and to those communities, we try to pitch and encourage them to consider what's possible and to do more. And we get good feedback that people didn't realize, and they invite us to speak to other groups. So it's kind of working. We're getting out there. I'm always trying to provide case studies to demonstrate the impact that you make in your communities and how the contracts that agencies award actually impact HUBZone firms and communities. These case studies are popular, and I need more. Actually, Shirley Bailey and I were just speaking earlier today about how we might work together, think about a way to work together to collaborate, to collect better data regarding the impact that you're making at an individual level and how we might be able to share some of that. So stay tuned and please share your stories. So what more can we do to reach 3% when for some of us it feels like we're starting to squeeze the last remaining drops from a lemon to fill the lemonade pitcher? I think we all agree that we start with this premise in the middle, right? That we have a chicken and egg scenario. Contracting officers say they need more procurement-ready HUBZone firms in order to make more HUBZone awards. And small businesses say they need more HUBZone awards to make it worth their while to join or stay in the program. SBA's role is limited to supporting both efforts, trying to attract more procurement-ready firms while simultaneously trying to encourage agencies to set aside more HUBZone contracts. And as we do that, we are always mindful of and seeking to balance the integrity of the program and the mission with making it easier, relieving the burden on small businesses. Sometimes we lower the barriers to entry to make it easier for firms to participate, and we simultaneously make room for some bad actors to exploit loopholes or commit fraud. That creates some bruises and IG inquiries and GAO, and it forces us to then clamp down and go the other way, right? Sometimes it's like a pendulum, right? So some of you have been with this program long enough, you probably feel like we just swing, right? We get that, and we're always trying to strike the right balance and find the right place to be. And of course, business trends evolve as well, and so we try our best to keep up with those. So we know what it takes for a firm to succeed in the HUBZone program. So these are some success factors. Take a look of firms that have won contracts. They're knowledgeable about government contracting. They have another certification. They accept a government credit card, et cetera. They have a positive past performance record. Firms that demonstrate these, are more likely to obtain a contract. So how can we attract more procurement-ready firms to participate or help firms in the program to win more contracts and become successful? Over the past few years, if you look at the column on the left, over the past few years, we have focused on making the program easier to use in an effort to attract and retain firms. This column highlights a bunch of those achievements and process improvements, adding to the footprint of the map, creating predictability with the map by freezing it, simplifying information, enhancing our customer service, minimizing the burden on you all, increasing a little bit of compliance to ensure that we're maintaining integrity, et cetera, et cetera. And the result, I think, again, things are working. Processing times are better than 60 days. Frankly, if you submit a complete package to us, you have a decision in less than 20 days. So we are really have, what? You had one in 48 hours. Yeah, so we have done an amazing, and it's consistently, I think we've been doing that now over the last year or two. So we've seen an uptick in applications at different periods. We're down a little right now, as all the programs are actually. We've improved our customer service. One of the things I heard when I started here was the customer service in HUBZone was spotty. We hired a firm. They have been terrific, and we've gotten nothing but compliments about the work that they do. And so we now measure it as well, so I can tell you next year with some clarity and more definition how well they're doing. But more HUBZone firms have received contracts. So things are working, right? So not enough, and we need to do more. I'm not suggesting we're done, but let's not lose sight of the positive, right? Ahead, how are we going to build on this? We're going to expand our early engagement efforts with PTACs, district offices, other partners. I'm going out next week to speak to the SBDCs to attract more procurement-ready firms and to help existing firms become more procurement proficient. We're working to expand the footprint into more rural communities. We're enlarging our governor-designated areas outreach so that we can try and get every state on the map with governor-designated rural areas. We are coordinating outreach related to the map update, which is taking place on July 1, 2023, so that we are able to very quickly, smoothly, efficiently transition firms. Make sure they are well aware ahead of time of options, no surprises. That's our goal with the map update, no surprises, everyone well informed, well ahead of time for smooth transitions. We're going to propose some additional regulatory changes to attract and retain firms, make it easier, and we're going to target more outreach to specific types of firms, like you would do in your own business. It's not all about marketing in a broad way. It's really about target marketing. We're going to try and do the same in the HUBZone program. Where are there real gaps among agencies? Where can we target specific types of firms to become HUBZone certified to fit those needs? What works at agencies? We know what works at agencies. We know what it takes for them to reach 3% and beyond and exceed 3%. We've studied this. We've studied this over the years, and when you gather all the studies we've done, this is what we know, and we share these best practices with the agencies. They need to become proficient in using set-asides. They need to make larger awards. They need to obligate set-asides to computer-related industries. They need to prioritize HUBZone from the tippy top. They need to utilize the schedules to benefit firms, et cetera, et cetera. Build relationship with HUBZone enterprises. Dedicate people within their agencies to become experts in the HUBZone program. So we know what it takes for them to succeed. So what are we doing to support them? Well, what we have done, as you know, is we've made the verification process easier. We've clarified attempt to maintain. We've mandated triennial program exams so that we're ensuring compliance. We want the integrity of this program to be really strong so they feel good about making HUBZone awards. We surveyed at OSDBUs for best practices. We've developed new materials, as I pointed out, and we've trained thousands of contracting officers. The result is protests are down. We had a high of, I think, 31 protests. It might have been 17, to 2 this year. We've had 2 protests this year. So terrific news. That's terrific. 2,000 firms have been decertified. Is that good news? Well, I would argue that a thinning of the portfolio, it's creating a smarter portfolio, right? We may have fewer firms, but we know the firms that we have and that we're referring, and when they're looking in DSBS to find them, these are firms that are really certified and are really ready to roll. And awards to HUBZone certified firms, as I mentioned, has increased. So what we're going to do ahead is expand outreach and training to the contracting officer community by getting that fact sheet and those materials out to them, doing more presentations, sharing best practices and case studies, and we're exploring agency-specific strategies for expanding the use of HUBZone only vehicles, especially among those that are, I would call, are underachievers. And so this is the last slide. Just to sum up, I think I mentioned all these things. Fiscal year 23, this is what the year looks like for the SBA HUBZone team, focusing a lot on that map update to make sure we don't miss a beat. Number 2 is agency engagement, getting to that 3% and those sole source and set-asides, getting those increased. Governor-designated areas, exploring, expanding the map into more rural communities. Early engagement, a new system, which is under development, will give us a lot more capacity to collect data and do compliance together. That's in development as well. Focusing on the initial certification process to maintain those processing times of under 50 days. Continuing eligibility to get through that first round of firms for triennial, complete the first triennial group of firms, and ensure that our annual recertification process is still buttoned up. And then we are going to put out a proposed rule this year to align some guidance and strengthen maybe some compliance, and we're looking for some opportunities to improve the program as well. So we look forward to your feedback as that proposed rule comes out. So that's an update. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your work that you do as you continue to utilize this program and deliver services to the government. I certainly appreciate that.